Hey, Boy Manning here. Welcome to the Garden Report. Special topic this week, off-season question that I wanted to do for a while here. I think many fans love this topic. The biggest Celtics killers in history. I'm obviously going to lean more modern day guys in the league. Uh, some of the more standout all-timers will obviously be on this list as well. But I'm thinking more about the guys who exceeded expectations or rose above their level to beat or threaten the Celtics heavily. Guys who play better on average versus their career against the Celtics, and guys who the Celtics just haven't been able to stop in general. Uh, you're obviously looking at some of the guys who have scored the most points per game in history against Boston, and that is where we start with Michael Jordan, who has to be on this list. Especially, I think another factor in this list is memorable moments, and his 63-point breakout. Even though the Bulls lost that game and the series 3-0, one of the more memorable moments in his career, the game that made him Michael Jordan, Larry Bird quote, and all the rest. You go from there. Who else? Many people's runner-up in the GOAT conversation, LeBron James, and his breakout game, at least as an all-timer. He had many great games before it and strong seasons, but when he went off in Game 6 and overcame that 3-2 deficit against Boston in the 2012 East Finals, that's when his career got rolling, and one of the all-time scorers against the Celtics. Another guy who you generally feared, and I think that's another thing here among the high-level guys on this list, 28 points per game. Every time LeBron stepped in the TD Garden, you were worried it was going to go sideways, at least after that 2012 point on. 2011, he went out and blew up the Celtics in that series alongside Wade, who was a little shakier in that series. You'll get to him in a little bit, but LeBron, the driver, 2017, the worst blowouts you'll ever see on that side of things when he went back to Cleveland and decimated the Celtics in that East Final. Celtics pulled a game out, still 4-1 rout. And then 2018, you think you have it. Tatum's dunking on LeBron, and then he pulls it right back after that play to move on to the finals. LeBron is a Celtics killer. We go on to some of the other all-time greats. Kareem and Magic both have to be on there. Kareem, one of the top 10 scorers all-time against Boston, 85, all the rest. Magic, 12.5 assists per game, the most of any player against the Celtics all-time. Bob Pettit, I will throw on here as well. The only guy to beat Bill Russell, for the most part in that era, and did it pretty handily with the Hawks there, got them their championship. He has to make this list, I think, given what the Celtics accomplished during that period. And then another guy who, in the 6 games in the finals in 2022, spoiled a golden opportunity for Boston to win in Steph Curry, who is a Celtics killer. Pretty even between Boston and Golden State throughout his career, but when he's laid it on Boston, it's been dominant on Curry's side of things. So he makes this list as well. That gives us 8 players there. So we go into or 6 players rather, and we go into, let's say, the bench side of things, where I'm going to name everybody's favorite, Ish Smith. 12 double-figure scoring performances in his career. He's a 7-point per game scorer for his career, 9.6 against Boston, his highest total against any team. 50% shooting in 25 games, 20 points with the Wizards in 2020. 2018, he goes for 19 on 8 and 9. And then he had a 1988 performance as well through that stretch. 27 in that Wizards game, actually, in 2020, his highest against the Celtics. Just breakout game after breakout game. So many different teams. He played for 13 teams in his career, and every time he came back around to play the Celtics, it was like he went off for 10-plus points, and in other cases, 20-plus points. So Ish Smith, out of nowhere, a Celtics killer. Everyone knows that name. I think everyone agrees on that name, just given how high he rose above his level in those situations. Karis LeVert, another one. He's had some duds against Boston, but the one that stands out, and again, real moments, this one stuck with people in 2020, right before the bubble or the hiatus in particular, which I think is why this one resonates so much. Goes off for 51. One of the all-time highest scoring games against the Celtics. In fact, if you stack it up, most points scored against the Celtics in a single game. You have 70 by Booker, who did not make this list, honorable mention. Elgin Baylor, 64. Wilt, 62, who did not make this list either, given all the losses to Russell. Kareem, 55. Wilkins, 54, another honorable mention here. Wilt with a couple 53 bombs. Embiid had 52 in a late season game against the Celtics 2 years ago. Jordan with 52, as well as Newland, McAdoo, another Chamberlain, 52 for Pettit. So that puts Karis LeVert into a tie with the other guys who scored 51, Hakeem, Ewing, Richie, Guerin, George Yardley. So he's in that top 20 of single game scores against Boston. A huge comeback win in that game. They go on to win 129-120 in overtime after trailing by double digits. Fourth quarter explosion and a bad loss as the Celtics were reeling a little bit before the league went on hiatus due to COVID. He also had a 41 at another point and had a great game. I think 21 in that game too that the Celtics lost to the Cavs this year. Overall for LeVert, he has scored 16 points per game against the Celtics in 17 games. But at TD Garden, he's 20 points per game. He's destroyed them in Boston. So that's another reason I'm going to put him on this list. Doing it on the road, I think, gains you some points.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They've got over 5 million active members. Look, it is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Now, unlike all the other apps, Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. That's it. Now, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends. Now, here's an example of a player projection lineup. You could be going Tyreek Hill for more than 90 receiving yards or Dak Prescott for more than 263 passing yards. On the other end, Josh Allen for less than 240 passing yards and CeeDee Lamb for more than 96 receiving yards. You like those picks? So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game.
That brings us to Chris Middleton. Another guy, you have a moment, the half-court shot he hit right before the buzzer in Game 1 of that 2018 series, where he went off 59% shooting, just south of 60, 61% from 3 in that series with 25 points a game. Probably his best series ever. They lost in 7. I think Terry Rozier saved them in that Game 7. But it did everything he could to win that series for Milwaukee that year. And then went on to score 22 points per game against Celtics in 2020, 24 in 2021 when they went on to win the title. He missed that 2022 series, which I think is a real what-if moment for Bucks fans coming off the title, and his health has gone sideways since. It doesn't feel as scary going against him as it used to, and he had a couple surgeries this summer. So a guy who's reeling here in terms of scaring you, but for that height, much like Dwayne Wade, who's also on this list, terrifying. And Wade in 2010, 33 points per game, a series loss, but did everything he could to keep Miami in it. And then once LeBron joins the next year, 30 points per game, 52.6 shooting for Dwayne Wade. They dominated Boston in that series, and his takedown of Rajon Rondo in that game where Rondo played with the dead arm after their collision, a real moment that made Celtics fans not too endearing of Dwayne Wade. Rondo also thrown their honorable mention. Championship in LA, game winner at the Garden with the Lakers, and that 2017 Bulls thing he did that everyone always talks about. Rondo, a sneaky Celtics killer too, but Wade actually makes this list. Despite his impact tailing off quite a bit too. In these finals in 2012, he only averaged 21 a game. That was a big reason the Celtics almost won that series. LeBron, of course, saving it in Game 6. And then we go to our final five here. More modern names, though I'll throw in a throwback for the old heads. Andrew Toney. If your name's going to be the Boston Strangler, you are a Boston Celtics killer. And he had 61 points over the first two games in the 81 East Finals, 30 points in 3 games in the 82 upset over Boston, including 39 to take a 3-1 lead. He is a Celtics killer. Jimmy Butler is a Celtics killer. Obvious what he did in 2022, nearly hitting a shot to flip that series at 3-2. I'm sure some people aren't going to love this one, but come on, every time you've played the Heat over the last handful of years here, this guy has terrorized you. The 3 free throws, I know those are seared in your mind. That almost dropped the Celtics to a 6-game loss to the Heat. Does Missoula survive that? If that's how they lose that series? An all-out meltdown at the end of that game that was pretty reminiscent of the year earlier in Game 7 in Miami. Derek White saves them that night, maybe saves Missoula, and certainly gave the Celtics a chance to come back down 3-0 in that series. But Butler and Caleb Martin, another guy who's an honorable mention here, slammed the door on that. Jimmy Butler, his 18.9 points per game against the Celtics in his career, in line with his average. But those moments in the playoffs make him a Celtics killer. Pretty good in that series I mentioned earlier, the Bulls-Celtics one from 17 too. Does he have one more series in him? One more big run with the Heat here in his contract year? We'll see. He could add to this. Kemba, I'll throw in here. 1 year did it for him here. 30 points per game in 2019. Did that make the Celtics sign him the next year, or at least influence it at all? He just went off that year, and I always felt like they had trouble with him. It's funny, a lot of these guys, and I listed them all here, Thompson, Porzingis, his big game, Drew Holiday, what he did in that Celtics-Bucks series, even O'Shea Brissett, who had a big game with the Pacers against Boston. Fournier had a couple of the year before the Celtics brought him in. Kyrie always had big games against Boston alongside LeBron. Even like the Cantors and Gallinaris, Monroes, Bantons, and just this month, Lonnie Walker, those guys all had success against Boston. Not necessarily Celtics killers, but guys who had at least a good game against Boston before they ended up with the Celtics. And Kemba, another example of that. And another reason he makes this list is that it went sideways with Boston. He killed them there too with the knee. No fault of his own, but he ends up a bad signing in the end, and it worked out trading for Al Horford on the back end of it. But all those minutes, all those games he played, torturing Boston and Charlotte, cost him the ability to do so sustainably once he joined the Celtics.
You know, I've had the chance to see the Patriots win the big game 5 times. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like being there live, right? And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite team play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. When you go to the Game Time app, look for the super deal. But you got to go to the app, you got to look for it. Check out the super deal. You won't regret it. With the Game Time app, curated deals make it easier to find the best price on great seats. Don't forget, look for the super deal. See views before you buy. You check out the view before you buy it. How's better? That's nothing better than that. It's like test driving the ticket. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and a whole lot more. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And as I mentioned, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy it. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
And then at 15 on this roster, almost forgot Donovan Mitchell. 29.6 points per game for Donovan Mitchell against the Celtics. That's third all time behind Jordan and Luka, who would have been a good pick for this list if he hadn't collapsed in the finals this last year. I don't think anyone is feeling like Luka's a Celtics killer after a 5-game finals. 31 points per game in that second round series. Mitchell had a 2-1 series. Could have gone 6-7 maybe if he stays healthy. I'm still intrigued by the Cavs, given that LeVert and Mitchell are there. Mobley and Allen have to be much better. So Mitchell, a Celtics killer, as well as Kyle Lowry, 16.3 points per game against Boston in his career. That's second amongst the teams he's played. You got that Raptors series. He threw the past OG that I led off the show here with. He is a Celtics killer. All the nagging plays, little box outs, defensive scraps, fouls, everything that guy does has always frustrated the Celtics between Toronto and Miami. Does he have a little bit left in him with the Sixers? Will be interesting to watch. 33 points, 6 threes in that game 6, 53 minutes played in the bubble that forced a game 7, along with that inbounds pass again to OG Anunoby that helped the Raptors save their chance in that series and push it to the brink. My honorable mentions, Dwight. Dwight was unreal around that 08-09 stretch. Once Garnett got back in 10, they handled him a little better, but he and that team, I thought of like Turkoglu and those guys too. Huge Celtics killers during that stretch and beat them in 09. Of course, no Garnett. Booker, he's got the 70. Game still frustrates me how it happened, but 70-70, and he's been pretty good throughout his career against Boston. Trae Young, that shot with Atlanta in that series, I feel like he's always played Boston pretty well too. His style, tough to contain for the way they play defense. You got to go back to Bernard King. Max has talked about that story over and over again, those 2 games he had to open up their series, and I think 81, I want to say. Ron Artest, the 3 that ruined 2010. That alone makes him a Celtics killer, but honorable mention. Wilkins, despite Bird's success against him, always a tough opponent. Sadiq Bey, who I think's like 50% from 3 in his career against Boston. The 2 honorable mentions from the spring, can they build on it? TJ McConnell just got a Pacers extension. Jalen was calling him effing Michael Jordan, the way he was playing in that series. And Nembhard had one of the best series against Boston you'll ever see in that series. Those guys, honorable mentions, as well as Jokic, who didn't play his best against Boston during the Grant higher level Al days. He gave it to Boston a little bit last year, and I think as he continues to somehow improve there, another guy who could become a Celtics killer, top 15 status. They don't play them often, but let's see how finals would go if it comes to that. Evan Fournier, similar to Kemba, always killing them when he wasn't on the team, and then once he got to Boston, didn't go great then either. So I'll throw him in as honorable mentions. Any other names you have below, let me know. And that was fun. I might have missed a big one. I'm sure I did. So let me know. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. It's football season, college, pro, all great opportunities to pick 2 or more players, pick more or less on their stat projections, and form your fantasy team for the weekend. You got a fantasy team for the season, I'm sure. This is every single week. You get a new chance, fresh chance. Your season might already be over with some injuries or anything like that going on your full season league. We'll do a prize pick team going into the weekend, week 2 of pro here, and use code CLNS. And if you play $5, again, 2 or more players, you'll get $50 instantly at Prize Picks. Again, use code CLNS for new users over there. Download the app, try it out. Fun experience. Our official daily fantasy sports partner here at CLNS. And if you're thinking about heading down to Foxborough on Sunday, check out Game Time. Last minute deals, zone deals, seat views. It's a good time to go check out what the Patriots and other teams are doing locally. Red Sox trying to make a run late in the year, as well as music, other events going on to end the summer into the fall here. More and more sports are going to start going, including the beloved basketball team here in Boston. So Go check out Game Time, download the app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. A great app that I've used for a long time to find tickets. Go to Nutrafol right now. Again, you want to preserve your hair, specialized treatments for men and women based on your lifestyle factors and others that can contribute to hair loss. Get ahead on it with Nutrafol. Get $10 off your first month subscription. Free shipping as well. That's a big one. Nutrafol.com/garden, NUTRAFOL.com. Use the code GARDEN over there for $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping. And HelloFresh, love them. Fresh ingredients to your door, prepackaged, as well as laid out instructions to make it easy, customizable plans suited to your diet or just preferences, seasonal recipes that changes all the time, and there are dozens and dozens of them over on HelloFresh.com, America's #1 meal kit. You can get one free breakfast item as long as your subscription's active. Just go to HelloFresh.com/freegarden. That's HelloFresh.com/freegarden. I'm Bobby Manning. We'll have some live editions previewing training camp that's 2 weeks away throughout this week and next, as well as some team previews around the league, see what some of the Celtics rivals are looking like. We're about to go full go into the season here and see what could challenge the Celtics internally or externally. And just 2 weeks from today, as I record this, the Celtics start training camp. They are back again on the 24th of September, so stay tuned for our coverage of that. We'll have everything covered that day down at the Celtics practice facility. And that's it for the Garden Report. Subscribe, Celtics All Access, CLNS Media, and see when we are going live again.